Hello, everyone. This is Claudiu Murgan, the host of the Spiritual Inspire Show. And my guest today is Meghan Dawn. As with all of our human journeys, Meghan's has been filled with much joy and much sorrow. She was born in New Zealand and spent her childhood and adolescence growing up on a farm. She is deeply grateful for this as it allowed her to develop a connection with the land spirits and animal beings. As a teenager, she had a close relationship with the Maori Tohunga, shaman, whereupon many of the magical ways of the Maori peoples were transmitted. Initially, there was also a deep love for the Christian stories and teachings, but with the unfolding years, they started to become arid, lifeless, and not at all inspiring. Journeying east, she met the bliss of dance and chant of Krishna and Radha, and she even lived in Krishna's birthplace, India, thinking that this was to be her destiny. Meghan authored the following books: Meditations with Teresa of Avila, A Journey into the Sacred, and The New Divine Feminine, Spiritual Evolution for a Woman's Soul. Meghan, thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm delighted to be here.
Let's kick off the discussion with your childhood in New Zealand during the time when you started connecting with the land and the animals, and later on, that connection morphed into your friendship with the Maori Tohunga.
Right, yes. You know, that connection was there right from the beginning, as long as I can remember. Even when I was 3 or 4 years old, I used to go up to the farm, and we had this one field that had trees, because of course, so many of the trees had been cleared for farming. And it was my haven to go and sit in the grove of the trees, and I would sing. And then what I realized what was happening as this very young child, I was singing for the spirit of the trees that had been chopped down and had been cleared. And it was such a, I think as a child, I didn't even realize what I was doing, of course, the magnitude of it. But I felt instantly at this time, not only a connection with the nature that was present and there and growing, but that also which had been in the past. So that was one very beautiful thing, to connect with the trees in that way. And of course, being on the farm, there are animals. And to be honest, the animals were my safe haven. That I would say that my first deepest intimacy, my true deepest intimate encounter was with an animal, where my soul knew its soul and its soul knew my soul. So it was very, very deep, steeped very deeply within me. And of course, as I matured and grew and came to know this Tohunga, all I can say is we flew in many dimensions. and yes, he taught me a lot, and our souls were intertwined. I think one of the most beautiful experiences we had, this was when I was a little older. I had returned to New Zealand. I'd been away for a little while, and I returned, and I woke up one morning and I was astounded because I'd had a dream. And I was aware, I was like, this dream has absolutely nothing to do with me, like nothing. And I knew it. I knew that I had no idea what it was about. Next minute, there was a knock on the door. Here was my Tohunga friend. He walks right in. He just comes and sits right on my bed. And he goes, "What did you dream?" And I told him. And he said, "Thank you." He said, "I'm going to council today, and that is what I need to tell the elders."
Wow.
And then he said, "So, shall I make you a cup of tea and get you some breakfast?"
So your experience firsthand was a shamanic experience or a Christian experience?
Oh, how do I unfold these? You know, before I would have answered you definitely and said shamanic. Definitely. Now, as I have progressed in my Christian Gnostic journey, wisdom journey, I simply can't pull them apart anymore because I am feeling in the healing power of Yeshua and Magdalene, in the healing power of their chant and their dance, in the healing power of the drums that were going on at that time, in the healing power of their connection to their environment and earth. They were shamans too. so yeah.
Interesting. And from there, you moved to Australia as another stop on your spiritual path. What were you hoping to find in Australia?
Yeah, that was interesting because I was in the ashram in India. And as you said in the introduction, I thought I'd found my destiny. I look now and it was like perhaps a little arrogant at 19, thinking I had found my destiny. And then it became very apparent very quickly that, no, I haven't. This is really not the place for me. Much as I was adoring it, I could feel it wasn't my place. So I asked then, this wisdom that I am feeling and encountering, this connection with the deep beloved, it must be in Christianity, because it must be in all of the traditions somewhere at some point. And that I was guided to go back to go to Melbourne, Australia. And then I started hanging out with all the monastics. So at that time, it was like in the 80s. The monasticism in Melbourne was booming. It was like all the monasteries were filled. They were having young people coming in. And so I was a little bit of a monastic groupie, and I went from one to the other and spent 2 years. And so I trained with them. And that took me deep into the contemplative Christian wisdom. And I
Are we talking
started,
about, sorry, Catholicism or something else?
we're talking about Catholicism, yes. But what I discovered was behind those doors, behind those walls, were renegade souls, were mystics that were up to far more than the traditional Catholicism. And their relationship with Yeshua, their relationship with the mother, their relationship with the feminine principle was astounding. I think I still to this day, when I think of who to me embodies the feminine in her fullness, who I've met on this earth, was the abbot of the Cistercian monastery of that time. The minute he turned and looked at me, it was like, oh my God, it's the mother. It's the mother. So there was a lot going on. So it was the Christian calling. It was calling me back, saying, yes, the kernel is here. The wisdom is here. You've just got to keep looking, keep looking.
So
So
in
that
other
was a story.
words, what you're saying is that they were going by the Christian tradition and teachings, but going to a deeper level, different level understanding, but at the same time, they're not willing to come forward and explain that deep understanding, being afraid of not being accepted or reprimanded. What do you think was the cause?
Afraid of being thrown out.
Wow.
Really, I do think so. They couldn't speak it. It would be like the same story of Saint Teresa all over again, the heretic of talking of God within, and for each person being able to have that deep relationship. And they took it to such a level that I think it would have been confronting. It would have toppled the authority of the church. And so, they couldn't do it.
But why is this fear of, hiding the truth about our connection with the divine? Why? I mean, if this is essential for our spiritual development, why is not being portrayed like that and explained like that?
Well, I think, a lot of priests might lose their job. They might lose their pensions. And I've got to say here, I've also known some beautiful, wonderful priests. So I don't want to put them all in that category. I think it's just the dogma and the authority would no longer have its control. God, what would happen to the wildness of our souls if we were given true freedom? Because I believe we all have a wildness of soul. And I also believe Yeshua and Magdalene were very wild. So you can't tame or control a wild soul. And there's fear in that because you don't know where it's going to go or what somebody is going to do. So it's fear of the unknown again.
Yes, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, I understand the dogma to be put in place because people were not educated. But now in 20th century, 21st century, that perception and level of education has changed dramatically. So we all have a different perception and understanding or understanding of the scriptures. And in my opinion, the church should adapt to the times and accept the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're seeing pockets of it, little pieces of it here and there, but such a huge edifice crumbles slowly. But it is certainly crumbling. And there are people. That's what I find with the people I work with too. They love bringing this combination of that shamanic, nature-based wisdom into their Christian roots, because they're both, because we feel both. We're deeply aligned through our ancestors with the earth. And as you know, I've just moved to Ireland, which was a call from my long deceased grandmother, actually on the night of Samhain, which is the traditional night. I also work with helping souls make their journey through the bardos, if you like, the other realms once they die. And so I was preparing to do that, as I do. And suddenly it was like, there's my grandmother, loud and clear. And I'm like, this is interesting. And then all my family came, and then all of my ancestors came. It was like the whole family lineage. And my grandmother said very clearly to me, it is time to go home to the land and the sea. And I was like, and she showed me Ireland. And then I thought, well, I was born in New Zealand, and sometimes New Zealand and Ireland can look similar. I went, so Granny, are you talking New Zealand or Ireland? And she started playing Celtic music in my ear. I'm like, okay, I got it. It's Ireland. and so what I feel why I was called back and why I'm here is to go back into that deep druidic Celtic wisdom. And in fact, that's been, and Granny said that to me, you've got to bring in that wisdom with what you're doing with the feminine and what you're doing with death and dying. You've got to bring in that wisdom. So it's always been there with me, but it seemed like, oh no, I need to be on the soil. I need to be here directly contacting, because I feel the magical quality of Ireland, but I also feel that deep history is steeped here, the good and the bad. So, and people are gravitating to that.
Yes, you don't get bored with their history and their rituals and, antique or ancient traditions, that's for sure.
Yeah. So it's beautiful to join them together. And in fact, while I was still in upstate New York, while I was preparing to come, Magdalene appeared, and then Bridget appeared. They were facing each other parallel before me, and both luminous, shining souls, like both. And then I gradually saw them and watched them, and they came closer and closer and closer and closer, and they joined. And it was such a humbling experience to witness that. And so I'm still feeling into that. What does that really mean? What did I really witness, to the depths of that? And so this joining that we're talking about, that's what I feel these two luminous beings are saying, all right, we're coming together, we're bringing our wisdom together. And actually next Saturday, I'm doing something on that and looking at the holy wells, the holy well tradition of Bridget and Ireland, the holy wells and healing wells of the Hebrew and Christian tradition, and when you start going into these deeply, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of ancestral wisdom that I think now is saying, all right, we're here, where we want to open and reveal this to the people. The people are ready now. They're thirsty.
Yeah, we're going through a spiritual transformation, the whole planet. Going back for a second to your stay in Australia, have you had the chance to connect with any Aboriginal tribes?
I have indeed. Oh my, that was something. That was something. How that came about was I did a couple of years of fascinating study with a woman, and she called it Body Voice Projects. And so we would go into our bodies and we would sound out whatever the energy was in every part of our body, whether it was tense, whether it was free, whether it was blocked. So we did a lot of work. And what came out of that was a natural capacity that I had for sound healing. And how that was revealed was really interesting, actually. I was living in a converted warehouse with two guys and doing this sound work, and they were artists. And we were all watching, I think, what was it, The Last Temptation of Christ, right? So way back. And suddenly I got this unbelievable pain in my leg and ankle and foot. And I mean, it was excruciating, so much so that my roommate said, should we call an ambulance? Like, you're going white, and I said, just take me to my room. So he actually put me on his back and piggybacked me down the stairs. He put me on my bed, and I instinctively just started sounding. And I started sounding and sounding and sounding, and I cleared all of that pain, all out of that leg with the sound. And it was interesting that afterwards, my roommate apparently was sitting outside my door, making sure that I was okay. He said, you sounded like an Aboriginal Edith Piaf. And from there, somehow I got connected with people, and I got invited up to the outback of Australia and got invited to an Aboriginal community and reservation there. And it was just pretty amazing. They're kind of standoffish to start with when you come in, because they're checking you out. But because I was brought in by a man who was married to an Aboriginal woman. So they figured I was okay, because otherwise she wouldn't bring me. But they still were like checking me out. And then eventually they realized, so we started talking. And I was saying, talking about the healing of sound. And they're like, yeah, of course. And they just said to me, and you have that power. Of course you have it. And then they said, hey, watch this. And then they said, this girl here, she really likes that guy over there. So they started singing. And before you know it, that guy just walked straight up to that girl and started to talk to her. And they all started laughing, and they thought it was the funniest thing. They said, we just sang a love song and got him over. And so they were kind of playing with it, but they were saying to me, yeah, of course. So, and I was taken to, some of their sacred spots, and it was such an honor, entered into the dream time with them, and was there for some of their rituals. It was deeply, deeply remarkable. And I actually had the opportunity, I could have stayed there and become, they needed a driver because they had different women who lived in different places too. And they said, when the women take counsel, we need a woman driver to come and collect us and be in counsel and drive us back. And they wanted me to do that. And somehow I just went, oh, I turned it down. And it's like one of those opportunities you think, did I do the right thing? But, to live in the outback, it's a very different experience.
Yes, it's rough. I heard other testimonials, and it's quite rough indeed.
It is.
But another guest of mine, Mali Paquette, had the chance to spend almost 9 years back and forth with the Koji tribe in northern Colombia. And again, she mentioned that it was a unique experience, and they are unique human beings with very high spiritual capacity and energies.
Yes, I used to say, if you go up there, you might as well strip your skin off, because your white skin, because it's going to mean nothing. Everything you know, everything you think you know, everything you think is normal, it is not. It is a completely different universe you're going to be walking into. So, yeah.
And your rational mind won't be able to explain it, that's for sure.
Oh, no. You just leave your rational mind at the door.
You delve into the agnostic gospels and mysteries, dedicating yourself to 5 years of training and study with the agnostic master and Kabbalistic teacher Tau Malaki of the Sophian lineage. I'm really intrigued to find out what is different in the mystical Christian lineage from what every churchgoer knows and by reading the scriptures. Whatever you can share with us, please.
Well, I think first of all, I would say you're entering into, with the Gnostic wisdom and the Gnostic rituals, you're entering into the kingdom of God. It is there, it is present, it is magical, it is healing, it is powerful. It works so deeply on your soul and other souls that you're called to work with. Even my time with the contemplatives, the monastics, they go very deep within to that space inside, that eternal within. And that's what propelled me to go to the Gnostics, because I still felt there is still something more. And this is where I went from the deep contemplation from the monastics to a much more shamanic type, with the chant and the dance and the ritual. And you are entering into interdimensional realities. And on those particular realms, things shift, things move, physical realities shift and change. So I think possibly the way I can describe it best too is for those who have done deep work in the Buddhist tradition, the Vajrayana. It's very similar to that. And you're taking on energies of greater beings, and you invoke that and become that.
Yes. And the comparison I usually use between shamanism or shamanic experience and a Christian experience or a Catholic experience is the shamans use Mother Nature as their cathedral.
Right.
It's open, it's vibrating, it's interacting, you embed your energies with the nature's energies. On the other side, you have a man-made construction like building, which somehow keeps you removed from nature, and there is less interaction.
Well, I would say this though, with the Gnostic training, we worked outside a lot. So it wasn't so much about the building or the construct. It was a very different experience. I often felt like, oh, somehow this is probably what the disciples were experiencing in the presence of Yeshua, with magical things were happening, where there was a greater presence happening, and a field of energy that you were part of, and that you were also contributing to. This was also something we were very much trained, that this is not just Tal Malachi, the leader, creating. Yes, he was, a big spirit. However, he needs each and every one of us to come as much as we can into our fullest capacity to support and to contribute. And so that's how I understand also Yeshua and Magdalene working with each other, supporting and contributing to each other, and the disciples, the women disciples and the male disciples, creating that energy field for miracles to happen, for healing to happen. So I can say this, that when we would enter into rituals, we were stepping into another dimension. So very, very magical. And also when you encounter that, it's like, it takes a little time to sort of, calm down and sort of come back into the everyday world again. But at the same time, you can also see the everyday world as magic in itself. But I felt it was never possible to sort of fully keep that fullness of the power while you were going to the supermarket. It was like,
different type of energy.
Yeah, very different. You can have a presence, but this was something other. So yeah.
While spending time with the monastics, were you exposed to different type of teachings, different books which are not available to the public, or they're using the same scriptures but having a different type of interpretation?
In my work with them, we were using the same books, but they were also books that all went deeper into the experience. And so they would take that as far as they possibly could, and the whole emphasis was on finding your own beloved within and standing firmly in that. I remember, that some of the nuns, oh my goodness, they had such chutzpah, any kind of romantic idea I had of these, loving nuns kind of went out the window. They were like powerhouses, and they were very like straight with one another. There was no kind of pandering there. So they were very strong, very strong in their own being, and would stand up for themselves and brought forth their own wisdom. But you would see too different gradations with different people. Some were more sort of in the line of traditional, some were more flying out, somewhere in between.
You hinted several times to a relationship between Yeshua and Mary Magdalene.
Mm.
I would like to understand your perception of Mary Magdalene, who she really was, and their relationship.
And for me, my experience of Mary Magdalene, I think probably to tell you the first encounter I had with you will answer that question. I was actually at Christ in the Desert Monastery. This is a Benedictine monastery in New Mexico. And it was Easter, and it was the Resurrection Sunday, you know, and they had a beautiful abbot, and he was doing the Eucharist. And as he was doing the Eucharist, he was doing the blessing. Yeshua and Magdalene, like my vision just shifted, and Yeshua and Magdalene appeared, and they started dancing around the altar. And it was the most extraordinary dance of union, yet separate beings, respect, love, mystery. It was all of this as they danced. And then Yeshua drew back and allowed Magdalene to come forth. This was my first encounter with her. And then she proceeded to show me who she was. And literally her whole being opened, and she was the cosmos. And she showed me she was the planets and the stars and the galaxies. She showed me she was all the faces of the feminine. She showed me she was the full embodiment in this body. She showed me she was heaven and earth. And it was extraordinary to witness. I mean, it was such a large vision. And then she just closed it down. And then, then she came to me and laid her hand on my shoulder and said, "It's time to trust in love again." And then she dissolved. So for me, Magdalene is that full embodiment of heaven and earth, of the cosmos, of the full human. As she always says, you know, this is what we're here for, to become fully human. This is what we're called for. And that fully human encompasses our divinity. So that's who she represents for me. And that's how I understand Yeshua in the masculine. And so what I see with these two beings who came to know their fullness. And therefore, when they came together, whole new galaxies were born. You know, so, and I think their relationship drew forth immense blessings for humanity and drew forth an expansion of consciousness for humanity. So I think, you know, together they drew forth so much more than either of them could have on their own.
Based on your research, I mean, we know that Yeshua had disciples, and based on your research, did the same happen with Mary Magdalene?
I believe so, yes. And from my gnostic teachings and training, most definitely.
And are there any names, or they were just lost in time in the history?
I think some are lost in time. You know, Salome is one that comes to mind, who is considered a close disciple of Magdalene. But I think with names, it was more a sense. I think Sarah was another one that came to mind, whether you could say Sarah as daughter or Sarah as disciple, probably both. Yes. Right. So, yeah.
What do you think it will take humanity to live in love and gratitude, to live at that level of spirituality and awareness?
I think it will take letting go of fear. and whenever, and anxiety. I know this just from experience, so working with the other way around. If I'm ever in fear or anxiousness, if I can come into gratitude, or if I can shift my vision to beauty, the inherent beauty in our earth, in our own being, in others, then somehow that fear and anxiousness dissipates. So I think while we're still in the grips of fear and anxiousness, that level of consciousness is difficult. Though I would say this, we move, right? So a little bit of fear. Oh, now we have gratitude. Oh, now we're back to a little bit of anxiousness. Oh, now our vision has changed. So I think we're moving. I think we're, and so gradually I hope that it will become more of the gratitude and love and consciousness and less of the fear, till one day it simply is gone.
So you are saying there is hope.
I believe there's always hope. Yes.
On December 21st, we had the solstice and the planets aligning. And how did you feel that event? Did you organize anything special?
Yes, I did. We had quite a wondrous event. And this I did what we call a sacred wedding feast. So this was a ritual I learned in the Gnostic tradition. And it's a Eucharistic tradition, but we call in the directions, we call in the archangels, we do specific chants. And the bread and the wine is very different because the wine represents the feminine. And on the very physical level, the feminine blood, the life-giving blood. And the bread represents the masculine. And the white bread representing the semen, the life-giving semen. And so the understanding, this Eucharist, is the joining of the feminine and masculine within each of us to come into the I am presence. And so it's a very beautiful ritual. And what I did was I combined and drew in Celtic deities and directions as well. So I was drawing in both, and it was a very, very powerful time. For my own self personally, I covered my home with candles, put on some beautiful Celtic music, and I danced and I danced and I danced, because that's for me a way that I truly enter into my truth of being, is through dance and through chant. And at one point I just felt the rain of light of my ancestors just coming. So on many levels, both celebrating alone and with others, it felt quite a remarkable time.
Nice, very nice celebration. While in US, you put together a foundation called the Sanctuary of Sophia, a center for the awakened feminine and an eco-spiritual community. How this entity developed?
Well, it became more a sense of a virtual center in the end. We were just about at the point of creating a physical center when it shifted and I got the change to Ireland. So it was like, that was why also the call to Ireland was very like, really? Are you sure? We're just about here at this point. And so, there are times, I think, when the world shifts, our vision shifts. And I've seen this with other people. I know a beautiful German woman, and she just finished, finally, after many years, creating this wonderful center in California. Oh, and it took her so long, and finally, and then she said, Then she got the call. She had to leave and go back to Germany and sell it.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It was very difficult for her, and it's almost like this essence of surrender to the journey and surrender to the call. You know, I mean, I've had this time again. My call to the US. I had no desire to go to the US. You know, I was really hoping to go back to New Zealand and settle. And it was like, really? The US? But once I got there, I loved it.
So were you giving a time frame for your stay in Ireland, or is an open-ending trip?
It's open-ended. I don't know. I am concurrently also feeling a call to go back to New Zealand. So I'm just feeling into the timing of that. You know, I can feel my soul is glancing towards New Zealand, and these things sort of start happening, and there's invitations, and I'm like, yes, it's coming, but I'm feeling there's work I have to do here, both personally, from a generational point of view, and just from a work point of view, universally. So I'll know when I know. And it could be if travel is going to resume, it could be I'll be in both places for parts of the year. I don't there again, we don't know. Everything is, I think, in such a flux that how can we make a plan?
Yes, so now your messages, or the messages we receive, have to adapt to the travel restrictions for sure.
Yeah, yes. The physical ones and the intergalactic ones.
Yes. I don't want to take the vaccine, so keep me in Ireland. Don't send me to New Zealand. Yeah, that's good.
Right. Yeah.
Tell us more about your books, please.
Okay, so the book on Teresa of Avila, this is based on her the interior castle, which she looks at going into the 7 dwellings, and those 7 dwellings take us deeper and deeper and deeper into our being. And what I was asked to do, really, well, it just came through, was to make it a lot more user-friendly, language acceptable, because her language of the time can be a little off-putting and a little cumbersome to get through. I had many people say, "Oh, thank you, I can finally read her now and get her wisdom," So it takes you, in many ways, it's a simple book, and yet it's deeply profound. Still, I will open it. If I need something, it's one of those books you can just open and it's like, there it is. That's exactly what I need to know right now. And I'll say this about Teresa. She had enormous vision into the interior workings of our soul and the trickiness of the ego and how we can get caught and not realize. And so she just names it, and what I love about her too is her immense sense of humor. So instead of getting uptight and like, oh my God, she's like laughs about it. And so she also loved dance and music. And she used to do, dance with the castanets in her full, nun's habit. So she was quite a character. And I think that comes out where she said, none of us should be too busy with our interior work or our exterior work to have at least 1 or 2 hours fun every day. And so she used to get the nuns dancing and singing together, and she would spontaneously compose these very funny poems, and so she gives a lot of wisdom and brings the contemplative and the active together. So that's her. The New Divine Feminine, that brings forward the Gnostic teachings. And I throw some Celtic wisdom in there too. It was already seeping in right before I got the call. And it goes through the 7 faces of the feminine. So we look at the daughter, the mother, the crone, the light and the dark of each face. And then the 7th, so we've got the light and the dark of the daughter, the light and the dark face of the mother, and the light and the dark of the crone. And the 7th face is your pure radiance, your pure essence, from where all of these faces come forth. It's a deep book. It's full of lots of chant and prayer. It looks at the mythology of Eve and Lilith. You know, you go into the Black Madonna. It takes you deep into your interior being and into your emotional being, because that's what I've found, that for many of us, yes, we've done a certain amount of emotional work, but somehow there's a deeper kernel of it still there, the deeper wound, the feminine wound, the family wound. It's so deep. So this book will take you there, but will also bring you into the light, you know, so you get both.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For those who are not familiar with the Black Madonna, can you please give us a quick summary? I mean, my first encounter with her was in Montserrat, Spain. So,
yeah, Montserrat, Spain, beautiful. Well, I think to give you the best way is to give my experience was actually in Italy, and the minute that I walked in to her little chapel where she was, I involuntarily fell on my knees. I was just boom down, and I could feel this presence on the altar was just extraordinary. And then I felt this energy coming to me and drawing from me. Deep within was this deep pain. Oh my God, it was like she was just pulling it out. And I was like, my God, I didn't even know that was in there. And I realized, oh, this isn't just my personal pain. My personal pain is in here, but it's also the universal feminine pain. And it was being pulled out. And when I say feminine, I'm like, for everybody, for women and men. And she pulled it out and she took it into her. And then I was watching all this on an energetic level where she transformed it. She transmuted it. And then she gave me the energy back, and it was pure peace. And she said to me, I am your mother. I am here to help heal you and all of my children. But you must come to me and you must ask. So for me, the Black Madonna has different aspects where she can take that darkness, that pain, personal, universal, the earth, and she can heal it and transform it and return us to our original energy of love and peace.
Beautiful. Yeah. What will you tell the women who are afraid to, express themselves, be themselves, and find their soul's purpose?
Take small steps, a little bit at a time, and pray. Find the person that most resonates with you, whether it's Magdalene, Bridget, the mother, Yeshua, whoever it is you feel, or somebody who works with women, and start to feel, because that's where it all begins. If we can feel what we're afraid of, then that can start to loosen. And if we can name it, then that can start to loosen more. And we just need to ask, like the Black Madonna saying, come to me and ask to be healed. And it will happen very quickly. And so we're afraid to feel, because it's been so painful or so much fear. So we can just deviate, but that just locks us in. So If you need, find somebody who can be with you, just to give you comfort, and start to feel and just let it out. And you can also let it out by sound. Go into your body, find the fear in the body and sound it out. And so that helps to open the voice and bring it out, or dance it out.
Yes, expressing yourself, it's a way of finding yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Meghan, we are approaching the end of the interview. Any
Yeah.
final words?
I think, yes, pretty much just find what makes your heart and your body come alive. What makes you feel alive? And do that as often as you can. And I think also mix it up. Find different ways, because we get stale. So don't find one practice and do it for 5 years. It's like, let yourself change and move and grow, and let the spirit come in and listen and follow.
Thank you very much. You brought some fresh air from Ireland for us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been lovely speaking with you.
And for my viewers, thank you for watching. Like it, share it as usual. Leave your comments. You can support me on patreon.com/Claudiu Murgan. And you can get a book for free, my first book, The Decadence of Our Souls, if you visit my website, claudiumurgan.com. Until next time, love and gratitude.